Okay. Hi guys, it's me. Let me put my hat on. So I really recently I kind of learned something that I wanted to share with you guys. Um, Something that I think would be a benefit to people that are in a similar situation as a student pilot, not necessarily someone that's already completed their training. Um, some of you may be familiar with YouTube and going on to uh, various videos and stuff like that. And one of them that's familiar um, is this one where the main wheel comes off um, the plane and eventually the pilot makes the land. And this is a someone that's doing a solo cross country flight, and it's a student pilot, not necessarily part of the pilot license. And you know, we, I was like, was there any way that this could have been prevented, or anything that could have been done to like increase the chances of this being avoided? Um, During one of the classes last semester, the English one, I had to do a short report. And my analysis was that the reporting by the media to the general public is necessarily bad, because it took me all of 5 minutes to discover the history of um, this particular plane. And so um, uh, let me do this. Okay. So I'll briefly read. It's poorly written, but I'll probably uh, read out a little bit of what it is that I wrote to get my point across, and then we'll take it from there. So in September 2018, United States took off on a solo cross-country flight. Blah, 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 blah. That's the introduction. Don't worry about that. The summary. The ABC News article by this person on September 2018 parroted CBS, Boston, and other news outlets by various reporters. It tells the same story with varying degrees of opinions without meaning to. The ABC News article draws heavily on stereotypes of teenagers as a blanket generalization that teenagers are always trying to avoid the homework. Uh, you know, the the media and the general public are still getting over the shock that teenagers are flying. Instead of being um, investigative reporters, it's not an entertaining story. It should have been, why did this happen? Like any other crash, the NTSB would be there, and and people would want answers. Yes, granted, this accident wasn't severe enough. So, my response to the article is so forth. After hearing about this, the first thing that I did was go to the government website for the National Transport Safety Board. It took me all of 5 minutes to pull up a history of the plane involved and discovered that it's the same plane. So basically, I mean, it does go on further, and I'll put a link in the description, and you can read this that I wrote. I mean, I need to rewrite it and upload it because it's not that perfect right now as I see. But basically, what it is that I realize when we come to buying cars, we're always looking at the history. Like, we look up Carfax to see the history of the car, to see if it's been in any serious accidents, or um, just make sure you're not buying two cars welded into one, or something. And if there is significant damage or if the engine has been rebuilt, that you can check the history of the repairs to make sure it was done properly. It's not that you don't trust the person selling your car, you just want to make sure you're not buying a death trap, since you are hoping that the vehicle that you're driving is safe for you and your family. So why don't we do that for the planes that we're intended to fly? This really doesn't apply so much to like the main YouTube stars that you see, like Aviation 101, Josh, and Flight Chops, because they've already had their planes and they've had them for a while and they maintain them. So it's not like they're coming to a different plane all the time. But us as students, we are getting into planes, and let's face it, they're not old. I mean, they're not new. They're from 1979, if not earlier than that. And that's a long time for a plane to be flying. Now, with the checklist for a Piper, similar to the Piper that she was flying, the checklist gives you the standard items to be safe, but it doesn't tell you to go beyond. And without knowing the history of the plane, the particular plane, you would just do this and be fine. And that's where wheels falling off the plane can happen, because you don't know the history of the plane. What am I talking about? So about 4 years earlier, let me just show you. We all know Carfax. So let's go ahead and use the planefax, or ntsb.gov. And N2496X, hit enter. Of course, it doesn't show up now, but thankfully I have it on here. And this is the NTSB report. Same plane. It's a 161, but it's not the same as the ones that I've been flying, the 140 Cherokee. But it's a Piper, similar. It's the same plane. It crashed in 1994. It's a few years before the incident with the wheel falling off the plane. But basically, again, this link will be in the description for you to read too. But basically what happened is that the plane was in approach to land. It was in landing configuration, and it hit a snowbank that was piled up at the end of the runway and crashed in. The engine was damaged and the gears was like ripped off and stuff. The landing gears was ripped off. So knowing that as a history, that the plane had suffered serious damage, such as a landing issue and the wheels being taken off the plane, and the accident back here where the main wheel falls off, it's a little bit more than a coincidence that a wheel would happen to fall off the plane that suffered a crash a few years earlier. I mean, I'm not down on the engineers that repaired it and checked it, but every time the plane goes up and down, it causes stresses on the metals. Something could have happened. And if you know the history of the plane while you're doing the checklist, because the checklist for the wheels is main wheel, tire, and brakes. That's what you're checking. You're not going to be checking the top of the landing gear underneath the ring unless you have a reason to do so. And, knowing the history of the particular plane that you're going to be flying gives you an insight to knowing what to look for and how to look for it beyond what's on the checklist to keep you yourself safe. It's not a guarantee. We're not saying that because the plane's had an accident once, it's going to happen every single time. But you can't deny that the plane crash landing, having severe damage, and damage to the landing gear didn't have an impact on this particular crash. Several years later, maybe, but it's the same plane. So, and although the pilot did amazingly well by landing the plane, by following her instructions on the radio on the ground, she followed her training and she landed perfectly. But as PIC, she is responsible for determining that the plane is safe to fly. So although that she did good, she also did bad because clearly something was missed. Somewhere along the line, something got missed. Like the person who flight the plane before, surely they must have noticed something with the ring, maybe, or the wheel, maybe. It doesn't just fall off out of thin air unless something like this happened. Now, I did try to message one of them, I think the dad on this video, but I ain't got a reply. Like, if they had known about this, would that have changed the decision to fly that particular plane or not? And the plane today is still flying. Like, it's still flying. It flew yesterday. It kind of makes me wonder, what does it have to take to get a plane to be written off completely? So, I mean, I guess it depends on how much money you have on your insurance, I guess. But so, and it doesn't just apply to this. So, one of the planes that I fly, literally, all you do is type your tail number. 5037. Oh, maybe it's the N. It worked perfectly fine before. Basically, you just put normally you just put the, of course, when I do it on the video, I think maybe the website went, it says something went wrong. So maybe the site's not working because I just typed it into the search and there we go. So N15037 is the particular plane that I'm flying, and there's a report on it, so I know the history. I pull it up, and then I learned that this particular plane, in 2012, had an incident where the magneto was forgot to be changed at their last overhaul at 2,000 hours, and the right magneto basically failed, and they were forced to do a crash landing, a forced landing without, bad engines kind of thing. And they submitted the report to the NCs or the FISDO or whatever. So so the other day, I've forgotten when the book showed that the dates hadn't been updated, my instructor called to check to make sure they actually did do the performance. They just didn't put the new stickers in the little folder for the plane to show that it had all the 100-hour checks and stuff. So, knowing the history of the plane and stuff like that keeps you as a student pilot safer because you know what to look for and what to check more. It doesn't mean that you're not disrespecting anyone, but the simple matter is, if you're checking Carfax to keep you and your family safe in the car that you want to potentially buy and drive, then why are you willing to risk your life and your friends and family's lives on the engineers doing the job correctly every single time when we know humans make mistakes unintentionally. I mean, nothing was done by design or purpose or with malice. It's just simply that the magneto got overlooked, and something like that had happened. So we now know that there's an issue of that happening. We can be on guard from checking it. We can be on guard from it happening ever again. So, and as I say, prevention is better than cure. So, because I think this is one aspect that like I said, that um, the main YouTube stars won't really say much or haven't said much because they have their own planes. The Josh from Aviation 101 again had the plane from his father and so forth. But I think it's 80. Let's check. There's nothing there. So that means there's no NTSB reports. Doesn't mean it hasn't had an accident or anything, but if there's any NTSB reports to the public, I believe all of them are. So you can use the NTSB, this website, as like a planefax, as in a Carfax. I mean, yes, they're supposed to maintain the planes. It has an airworthiness certificate, but it doesn't mean things doesn't get overlooked or mistakes don't happen, because we know they do. If there was no mistakes, there wouldn't be erasers on the end of pencils. So, as a student pilot, if you're renting planes, even after you got your license, do yourself a favor, check planefax and check the history of the plane, see if there is a history of the plane. I mean, yes, you can technically look at the logs and, get a detailed look, but this is a quick and dirty way, basically, of checking it without having to go through all the logs and stuff like that. All right, I'll check you later.